exactly what Zhang Yi was concerned about. She smiled and said, "Don't worry about that." She winked at Zhang Yi and said, "I spent half a year carefully crafting this suit of armor. It is made entirely of E-metal and materials similar to E-metal. In terms of defense, it can withstand the first strike of a battle axe missile without being destroyed. The inner core has been redesigned based on the performance of military black combat suits. Even if it suffers an explosive impact, it can dissipate most of the impact force. According to my estimates, its overall defense is roughly equivalent to that of an enhancement-type mutant with an ability index of around 9,500 points." Zhang Yi's eyes lit up. "That's great!" This greatly enhanced his survivability. Lu Karen continued, "I also considered its flexibility. Brother, take a look at this." She picked up the tablet in her hand and entered a string of commands. In the next moment, Zhang Yi saw the submarine dragon armor in front of him transform like a carp, with countless scales rising up all over its body, opening and closing smoothly, like ripples on water. Upon closer inspection, he realized that the outer layer of the armor was not made in one piece. Instead, it was made up of many scale-like pieces of armor that were combined into a complete set of armor. "Is this chain mail?" Zhang Yi immediately recognized the inspiration behind the design. Lu Karen shook her head, "Not entirely. Some areas are connected as a whole, but most areas, especially the joints, are made of fish-scale armor. This way, when you wear the armor, it will be like wearing a suit of clothes, and you won't feel uncomfortable when moving around. In addition, since the energy problem has been solved, there are hidden jet tail fins at the back that can achieve ultra-high-speed flight in a short period of time." Lu Karen scratched her head and said with a slight embarrassment, "Considering your abilities, I greatly reduced the weight of the mecha. I've removed a lot of weapons and equipment, and even the flight mode can only be maintained for half an hour at most. Brother, you should be able to accept this, right?" Zhang Yi nodded contentedly. This was exactly the kind of armor he wanted. It could even be said that this set of armor was only valuable to him and was completely customized. Even if it fell into the hands of others, it would probably just be a tortoise shell with a single combat attribute and a focus on defense. However, Zhang Yi's main attack was long-range. The mecha he needed had high defense, high mobility, and a high degree of flexibility, which was enough. Zhang Yi took a deep breath, his eyes sparkling with joy. He said to Lu Karen, "How could I have any objections? I couldn't be more satisfied. Karen, I really love this exoskeleton armor you made for me." The weapons were lightweight because Zhang Yi's dimensional space had no shortage of weapons, so there was no need to pile them on and add weight. The high-speed flight time was short because Zhang Yi himself had the ability to fly, so this function was only for emergencies. Furthermore, if Zhang Yi really needed to fly for a long time, he could simply refuel, which was not a problem at all. At this point, Zhang Yi was already somewhat impatient. "Has this suit been tested?" Lu Karen nodded. "I've tested it thousands of times, and there are no safety hazards." Lu Karen understood Zhang Yi. He didn't like being a guinea pig. Zhang Yi nodded. It wasn't that he didn't trust Lu Karen's technology, it was just that he was used to it. Lu Karen handed the control of the mech over to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi took off his outer clothes, leaving only a black battle suit underneath, and walked in front of the mech. The fish scale-like armor immediately opened a slot, allowing Zhang Yi to put it on like a jumpsuit. After putting on the armor, Zhang Yi felt strange, as if he were wearing a slightly thick sports suit, without any feeling of oppression or heaviness. The exoskeleton armor was designed based on Zhang Yi's body structure, and as long as it didn't lose its energy source, it would save Zhang Yi a lot of physical strength. Wearing it, one could carry very heavy things with very little effort. Zhang Yi glanced around through the tactical goggles and quickly adapted to everything. "I want to go out and try out the power of this armor." Zhang Yi rubbed his hands together, took a few excited steps, and moved as if he were riding the wind, his footsteps flying. He and Lu Karen left the underground laboratory and came outside. His family members were not surprised to see this scene, as they had known about the development of this armor for a long time. It was just the first time they had seen Zhang Yi wearing it. Zhang Yi left the shelter and immediately began to try out the basic functions of the armor. The armor had many abilities, and the complex ones required several days and nights of memorizing the manual. However, most of the functions were only auxiliary functions, and their presence or absence did not affect normal use. Therefore, Zhang Yi only tested its most important abilities. The first was flight. Zhang Yi made all the necessary safety preparations, and everything follows the trail, allowed him to escape the moment he sensed that the armor was out of control. Therefore, there was nothing to worry about. He accelerated to full speed in one breath and shot into the sky. 2 blue flames followed behind him, and he flew faster than even the latest fighter jets. Flying at such a speed was really exhilarating. Strictly speaking, Zhang Yi had never experienced the feeling of high-speed flight before. He had always used space shuffle. So this time, he truly felt the exhilaration of the wind forming a terrifying sonic boom behind him. The people in the shelter watched him from afar, only seeing Zhang Yi darting up and down in the air, performing various random tests. The submarine dragon did not disappoint Zhang Yi with its flying ability, which was indeed perfect. Moreover, the power supply issue could be solved by simply replacing the Yuan energy block. As for the intelligent combat system, it was not much different from the intelligent system of the combat suit. Liu Karen was a mechanical engineer, and the military was still more advanced in terms of intelligent systems. The one Zhang Yi used was designed by Yang Xinqin herself and was an independent version that had been modified from the military combat system. Therefore, there was basically no need to worry that the intelligent system of this armor would be hacked by others. The weapon system is the same as the Thunderstrike and White Eagle used by Zhang Yi. They are top-level energy storage weapons, so there is no need to say more. In terms of defense, it is made of the latest E-metal and is also very reliable. What surprised Zhang Yi the most was its flexibility. There was no feeling of heaviness when controlling the armor. No wonder it was called exoskeleton armor. Zhang Yi took out the Holy Judgment sword and wielded it, cutting through the air with a loud whistling sound. His elbows, shoulders, knees, ankles, and hips were all flexible, ensuring that his close combat would not be affected. This set of armor could only be described with one word: perfect. The submarine dragon armor had been tested by Zhang Yi, and he was extremely satisfied with the results. With the help of the exoskeleton, his strength and speed were greatly enhanced in close combat. According to Zhang Yi's own estimates, this set of armor could increase his ability index by at least 500 points. This may not seem like much, but it was extremely important because it greatly enhanced Zhang Yi's survivability and became his ultimate weapon. For example, if he was fighting someone and both of them were exhausted and on the verge of collapse, this armor would allow him to temporarily possess the combat power of a captain. It was extremely useful in critical moments and was like a super-enhanced combat suit in everyday life. It was very useful at critical moments, and on ordinary days, it was like a super-enhanced combat suit. It was simply perfect. Zhang Yi swept across the Heron River with the Holy Judgment in his hand. He swung his right hand forward without using any supernatural powers, relying solely on the power of the armor and the sharpness of the Holy Judgment to cut a half-meter deep, hundreds of meters long trench in the ice. Not bad. Zhang Yi landed on the bank of the Heron River, looked at his new equipment with great satisfaction, and nodded with a smile. Croak! The frog pushed a large hole in the ice, crawled out, blinked its round eyes, and looked at Zhang Yi. It had been sleeping soundly when it was suddenly awakened, and it was very confused. Zhang Yi heard the cry, turned to look at it, and then opened his visor. Sorry, I woke you up, didn't I? When the frog saw that it was Zhang Yi, it jumped over excitedly. Looking at the mecha on Zhang Yi's body, stars appeared in its eyes, and it rubbed its hands together excitedly. Wow! It's a mecha suit, it's so cool. After all, frogs used to be humans, and there was hardly a man in the world who could resist the charm of mecha suits and excavators. Seeing the frog, Zhang Yi smiled and said, "You slept for a long time again this time." The frog patted its snow-white belly and said, sleeping is such a wonderful thing. The three things I love most in my life are catching bugs, sleeping, and sharing beautiful music with my friends. Hearing this, an idea suddenly popped into Zhang Yi's mind. Frog, you love eating bugs so much. How would you like to raise bugs? Frogs seem to have a special ability to control insects. Although this ability seemed weak against higher-level insects, if cultivated, it would be very useful for managing an earth centipede farm. The frog's eyes lit up. Will there be enough insects? Zhang Yi's eyes twitched. Enough? Those earth centipede eggs were all laid by the centipede queen after she had devoured a large amount of yuan stones. Their shells were colorful, and the earth centipedes they hatched were the strongest of their kind. If he let the frog eat them, it seemed like it wouldn't be able to eat that many. Those things grew to weigh at least a few thousand gene each, and their protein content was many times that of beef. That's fine, Zhang Yi said. The frog jumped up and down excitedly. Croak. That's really great. Zhang Yi took the frog back, and his family hurried over to ask Zhang Yi if his new armor was any good. Zhang Yi gave them a thumbs up. It couldn't be stronger. I'm very satisfied with this set of armor. He brought the frog over and said to Zhou Kir, the frog will help you manage the farm in the future. He whispered to Zhou Kir, if we ever leave, someone has to stay behind to take care of the insects. Otherwise, something bad might happen. If they weren't there, those terrifying earth centipedes could wreak havoc in the Jiangnan region. Zhang Yi had to be extremely careful. Zhou Kir nodded in understanding and smiled. With the frog's help, managing the farm will be much easier in the future. She waved to the frog, took it to the farm, and explained to it how to raise earth centipedes. Zhang Yi came to Lu Karen, who was looking at him eagerly. Lu Karen's eyes were sparkling. She was extremely excited that her life's work had been recognized by Zhang Yi. That was the greatest pride of a technician. Karen, thank you very much for your help, Zhang Yi said sincerely. Lu Karen's face flushed red, and she clenched her fists, her palms sweating slightly from the excitement. This suit can only be worn by you, brother, to achieve its full potential. From now on, when you travel anywhere in the world, people will see my masterpiece. This is my greatest achievement. So, brother, I should be thanking you for giving me this opportunity. Zhang Yi smiled slightly. We've achieved mutual success, right? Lu Karen nodded. Zhang Yi glanced to the side. Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue were not far away, staring at the perfect exoskeleton armor in the workshop, their eyes shining with excitement as if they had seen a top model. Uncle Yu saw a powerful weapon that could increase combat effectiveness. Fatty Sue saw a giant Gundam action figure. Zhang Yi asked Lu Karen, can this kind of armor be mass-produced? Lu Karen already knew Zhang Yi would ask this question. She replied, give me enough materials and time, and I can make another set in a month. However, this set of armor was tailor-made for you, brother. It won't fit anyone else. For example, the armor made for Uncle Yu. Weapons were definitely the most important, because Uncle Yu's attack method was simple and he lacked long-range output capabilities. As for the one made for Fatty Sue, never mind, just pair it with some random weapons and enhance its load-bearing capacity and escapability. After all, when Fatty Sue was fighting, he could run far away and control the battlefield with his skills, which was good enough. Zhang Yi rubbed his nose. That's true. Mass production didn't make much sense. After all, every mutant had different abilities. Besides, it took a lot of energy and supernatural abilities to craft armor. If there's a way, let's craft a set for everyone. They don't need to be too powerful, just for survival and escape. Lu Karen nodded and smiled. I've already thought about that. When I was making the submarine dragon, I had more than a dozen experimental models. Although their performance wasn't as good as the submarine dragon, they were still good for self-defense. I'll modify them a bit, and then everyone can use them. Zhang Yi looked at Lu Karen curiously. What about you? Lu Karen put her hands behind her back, smiled mysteriously, and shook her head. I'll just take whatever. Zhang Yi's eyes suddenly became suspicious. Is it some kind of super secret weapon? Lu Karen pushed him. You'll find out later. But I can't show it to you yet because it's not finished. Besides, only I can control it. Everything in the house had been upgraded properly, from weapons to people. Now, the shelter was impregnable. It was no exaggeration to say that it was enough to defend against a large region without using the Reaper of Love. In the breeding farm, under Zhou Keir's careful care, colorful earth centipedes finally began to hatch. Even the frog donned the white lab coats and begun meticulously raising the insects. This work is something he truly loves, as he has always been an insect enthusiast. Most importantly, these insects were edible, which was a wonderful thing. Usually only able to roll around in the mud under the Heron River, he had finally found something he loved to do and was good at, so he put his heart into it. One after another, the first batch of yuan ore was transported from Xinjiang. Zhang Yi used the dimensional space to send the agreed 7% to Blizzard City and 5% to Deng's technology, and brought the rest back to feed the earth centipedes and refine the elemental substance. Finally, when everything was ready, he decided to go to the snowy plateau. During this period, Pa Jigsaw called him more than a dozen times. He earnestly requested him to go to the snowy plateau to participate in the Dharma assembly. Otherwise, he would only be able to take his confidants with him and flee from the snowy plateau to seek refuge in other regions. According to Pa Jigsaw, with the approach of the Dharma assembly, the Yashi Langtai family began to intensify their oppression of the other three major families. The head of the Yashi Langtai family, Sangha Temple chief monk Yashi Langtai Deji, who held the highest political and religious power in the snowy plateau, told them almost bluntly that they had only two choices. Either they submit to the Yashi Langtai family and hand over all their land and private armies, or they wait to be wiped out by the Yashi Langtai family. The Undertaker was born into the Yashi Langtai family, and although he was kind-hearted and would not kill innocent people indiscriminately, as long as he was around, no one dared to lay a finger on the Yashi Langtai family. The other families could only take a beating. It wouldn't take long before their families would be wiped out from the snowy plateau. The four families were different from other forces. They had existed on the snowy plateau for too long and had enormous influence in both the political and religious spheres. Therefore, the Yashi Langtai family would not allow them to continue to exist. Once war broke out, they would surely wipe them all out to prevent them from rising again. As a result, Pa Jigsaw's attitude during his conversations with Zhang Yi became more and more anxious and even somewhat humble and pleading. Zhang Yi took the opportunity to ask him for 2 more copies of the original images of the legend of King Geezer. The more he read, the more frightened he became, because the contents were simply shocking. Some of the stories of ancient times revealed in it were too bizarre and unbelievable. However, now it seemed that they were not myths, but rather historical truths that had been deliberately concealed. It's almost over. Zhang Yi found Yang Xinqin. When faced with important matters, he often liked to make decisions together with Yang Xinqin. One person's ideas are limited, but 2 people's blind spots are much smaller. Zhang Yi said to Yang Xinqin, the Pa Ji family holds the secrets of ancient history. If we can obtain the complete version of the legend of King Geezer, we will have the opportunity to pass through the Demon Kingdom under the Great Snow Mountain and peek into the secrets of those mysterious underground tribes. So I think we should go to the Dharma assembly this time. If all else fails, we can just take it back from Pa Jigsaw. Zhang Yi was prepared for the worst. He was determined to get his hands on the legend of King Geezer, and if he could obtain it through reasonable means, then there would be no problem. But if it caused too much trouble, he couldn't afford it, so even if he had to be the villain and snatch it away, he would have to do it. Yang Xinqin said, the Pa Ji family asked us to go, so it seems that they have been forced into a corner. Sending a tiger to swallow a wolf is a desperate move, and they will definitely be on guard against us. However, whether it is the text of the legend of King Geezer or the secrets of the Great Snow Mountain, I think they are both of great value. She looked at Zhang Yi. Brother, if you encounter the Hades gatekeeper in the abyss of Mist Valley or the white-robed boy under the Qinling Mountains, how likely do you think you are to win? Zhang Yi was silent for a full 20 seconds. Finally, he said with a gloomy look on his face, if I run away with all my might, they won't be able to catch me 100%. Maybe I'll have a chance to escape, maybe. Whether it was the Hades gatekeepers in black armor or the white dragon with the head of a snake and the body of a human, they didn't use their full strength when they attacked them. They seemed to be restricted in some way and unable to leave their area. That was why Zhang Yi and the other humans of Epsilon were able to escape. Otherwise, with the strength of their opponents, Zhang Yi and the others would have been no match for them. Yang Xinxin said, that being the case, sometimes it's useless to just retreat. If a crisis is coming sooner or later, the best way to deal with it is to keep getting stronger. Zhang Yi hugged his chest and leaned against the wall, thinking about his experiences. At the crossroads of life, every choice is particularly important. One wrong choice could ruin your whole life. Zhang Yi smiled faintly, you're right. Based on the current situation, the snowy plateau should be the most suitable place for me to go. After all, even if the demon kingdom still exists underground, how powerful can a race that was suppressed by human heroes more than 2,000 years ago be? Zhang Yi comforted himself and sighed softly in his heart, I hope that after the end of the world, no overly powerful individuals will appear. Or maybe I can go and investigate why this mysterious underground race has such extraordinary powers. Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin discussed it carefully. This time, everyone in the family would go to the snowy plateau, leaving only the frog at home to take care of the breeding farm. Anyway, if anything really happened, it wouldn't take long to return. However, only a few combatants would show themselves, while the others would hide in the shadows and not easily reveal themselves. Furthermore, this time, they would need to hide their identities. Only by hiding themselves in the darkness and observing their opponents in the sunlight could they gain the upper hand. Pa Jigsaw had no reason to reveal information about Zhang Yi and the others. Then, when the time came, Zhang Yi could suddenly reveal his strength and catch the other families off guard. After all, Zhang Yi didn't know how strong Epsilon, the heavenly gifted one of the snowy plateau, really was. According to Pa Jigsaw, he was like a god in the snowy plateau and could easily sweep away any opponent with a single move. After the discussion, Zhang Yi took out his phone to contact Pa Jigsaw. At this time, Pa Jigsaw was worried all day long. After the end of the world, heavy snow fell, and transportation to and from the entire snowy plateau became extremely difficult. During his last trip to Xinjing, he took the opportunity to transfer some of his assets, but in order not to arouse the suspicion of other families, and because he still had a little bit of hope, most of his property and private army remained in the snowy region. However, this would of course be discovered. Now, with the approach of the Dharma assembly, the Yashilangtai family was putting even more pressure on the Paji family. If it weren't for the solemnity of the Dharma assembly and his lingering respect for Tantra, Pa Jigsaw would even think that the Yashilangtai family would attack them at any moment. But even if it wasn't now, it was only a matter of time. He had to either ask for outside help, escape, or wait to die. Surrender was out of the question. The Yashilangtai family would not allow Pa Jigsaw, who had such a high level of influence in the snowy region, to live. Just as he was worrying about this, a message arrived from Zhang Yi. Seeing this, Pa Jigsaw immediately ordered his loyal bodyguard Solangi, send everyone away. Solangi, a burly man like an iron tower, nodded, then waved his hand and immediately took all the maids out of the luxurious room, then called in his fully armed private soldiers to guard every corner. Pa Jigsaw then answered the call. Zhang Yi was getting a little impatient, but Pa Jigsaw said with a flattering smile, I'm sorry, Your Excellency Chaos. This call is very important, so I had to dismiss everyone. Zhang Yi said indifferently, I understand, you're right to be cautious. Let me ask you, among your men, how many of them know that you've been in contact with me? Pa Jigsaw's smile disappeared from his face, and he said seriously, after leaving Xinjing, every time I contacted you, I was very secretive and didn't tell anyone. As for in Xinjing, I invited representatives from every major region to a banquet. It would be very difficult for anyone to guess who you are. Zhang Yi sneered, you can't be too careful. Who knows if you have any other family's spies among your men? Upon hearing this, Pa Jigsaw couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. The guards and maids around me are the most loyal. Their families have been loyal to the Pa Ji family for generations and have clean backgrounds. Zhang Yi said, that doesn't matter. Do you still believe in that? Everyone has a price, and they will betray you if the price is right, so I don't believe in that. Pa Jigsaw's words faltered, and for a moment, he didn't know what to say. He thought to himself, according to you, doesn't that mean there is no one in this world who can be trusted? In fact, Pa Jigsaw exercised very strict control over the people around him. In the information age, whether it was passing information out or secretly contacting someone, it was too easy to find out. Zhang Yi said, let's talk about the Demon Kingdom. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes, I'm quite interested in that thing. I want to go take a look. Pa Jigsaw was overjoyed. After working so hard to please Zhang Yi for so long, he finally got a positive response from him. Hope rose in Pa Jigsaw's heart. Perhaps he could live well in the southwest region. He might even have a chance to overthrow the Yashi Langtai family and regain control of the southwest region. Pa Jigsaw swallowed hard and said, I will tell you everything you want to know. As long as you can help the Pa Ji family survive here. Zhang Yi said indifferently, that depends on how much I can get from you. I'm a man who does things for profit. Pa Jigsaw said, don't worry, as long as you can help me successfully seize the treasure of the Demon Kingdom under the Great Snow Mountain, your gains will be much greater than you can imagine. Zhang Yi let out a sneer. Then it's settled. According to legend, the entrance to the Demon Kingdom sealed beneath the Great Snow Mountain had not been opened for more than 2,000 years. Zhang Yi just thought that it was probably a mysterious underground civilization, and that there might be something similar to the source of God or the spirit of sacrifice there, so he wanted to go and take a look. If he didn't find what he was looking for, he would turn around and leave. The two agreed on a date. There was less than a month left before the Dharma assembly. According to Pa Jigsaw, the relationship between the four families in the Snowy Plateau was becoming increasingly sensitive. The Yashi Langtai family was trying to win over the other two families to surround the Pa Ji family. However, the other two families, the Xiaja family and the La Min family, were not so easily manipulated. What's more, there was a group of rebels on the Snowy Plateau who refused to submit to the chief monk of Sangha Temple and had been causing chaos. Zhang Yi and the others planned to hide their identities and go there as mercenaries. After all sides were recruiting soldiers recently, and mercenaries frequently appeared everywhere, so it was nothing unusual. Zhang Yi decided to leave in a few days, as he still had some things to arrange at home. The two agreed on a time and ended their communication. Immediately, Zhang Yi called everyone in the shelter and informed them that they were about to leave for the Snowy Plateau. After listening, everyone's faces showed curiosity or anticipation. The Snowy Plateau? Isn't that the southwest region? That place has always been shrouded in mystery, making people long to go there. Yang Xia said with anticipation. Or maybe we can go to Sangha Temple to pray to the gods and pray for the end of the Ice Age. Not far away, her cousin Yang Xinxin said bluntly, the snowy region is mysterious, but it is not a peaceful place. Since ancient times, there have been many terrifying legends about it. In particular, some of the traditional customs of Tantra will make you vomit when you see them. Zhang Yi spread his hands and said, this trip to the Snowy Plateau is different from the trip to Xinjiang. We have been invited to go, and we have a purpose. So far, Zhang Yi had only discussed the matter between him and Pa Jigsaw with Yang Xinxin in detail, and no one else knew the details. However, today, Zhang Yi told everyone the whole story. Upon hearing that it involved such a complicated power struggle, everyone's relaxed expressions disappeared. So this is a power struggle in the southwest region. But is there really treasure under the Great Snow Mountain? If so, we can seize the opportunity and be the first to get there. We might be able to obtain amazing wealth. Shou Kira analyzed calmly. Zhang Yi nodded, that's what I think. I've thought about this for a long time. The end of the world is upon us, and this world is far more dangerous than we imagined. If possible, I hope to live here with you all for the rest of my life without any worries. but at the moment, we clearly don't have safe enough living conditions. Zhang Yi rubbed his hands together and stared intently at everyone. Therefore, everyone must not slack off. Work hard to become stronger, and then we can all live well together. The trip to the snowy region was thus decided. Whenever Zhang Yi made a decision, few could change his mind. After all, Zhang Yi never made decisions on a whim. He might not be the smartest person in the shelter, but he was definitely the most stable. Therefore, there were no loopholes in his arrangements. Right, we're going as mercenaries. Non-combatants will hide in Muyan's shadow space. Zhang Yi looked at the girl wearing a black veil in the corner of the living room. Muyan nodded. With everyone's help, I've added a lot of daily necessities to my shadow space, and it's become a paradise. It's fine to stay there for a long time, except that it's a little boring. Zhang Yi began to call out names. On the surface, the combat personnel are me, Flower, Lian Yu, Fatty Su, and Uncle Yu. Fatty Su was looking down at his game and pointed to his own face in surprise when he heard this. Me? Zhang Yi didn't even bother to respond. Fatty Su's performance in the Qinling Mountain Abyss last time was seen by Zhang Yi when he reviewed their battle footage. Once his fighting spirit was aroused, this fat man's combat effectiveness was quite good. If he could get rid of his laziness and really think about how to make himself stronger, with Zhang Yi's help, it would only be a matter of time before he became a captain-level mutant. So Zhang Yi ignored Fatty Su's aggrieved expression and made arrangements directly. We all need to change our identities. Once we arrive in the snowy region, be careful to hide. Use simple code names. From now on, my code name is A, Flower is B, Lian Yu is C, Fatty Su is D, and Uncle Yu is E. Fatty Su sighed, this is really depressing. Zhou Qi said gently, since we have to hide our identities, we have to do it thoroughly. Otherwise, our identities are still likely to be exposed. After all, we are now famous in the Huashu Kingdom, and those large forces must have investigated us. She smiled and raised her hands, which were white, slender, and delicate, truly flawless and dexterous like beautiful jade. With my abilities, I can help you slightly adjust your physical structure. Although it's not easy to change your body shape, it's very easy to change your appearance. So, Zhou Qi helped the 4 members of the combat team and the cat change their appearances. Just by adjusting the proportions of their facial features and slightly changing their bones, she made them look like completely different people, with no trace of their former selves. Qi, how long can this appearance last? Zhang Yi asked. Zhou Qi said, about a month. But you can renew it when it expires. She said with a smile. Zhang Yi nodded, very good, that will save us a lot of trouble. Zhou Haimei suddenly raised her hand and asked, wait, we're all leaving, who's going to stay and look after the house? Zhang Yi laughed and said, leave it to the frogs. After they left, the only thing Zhang Yi was worried about was the earth centipede farm. The frog was now addicted to raising earth centipedes and spent all day with them, eating and sleeping with them. That's right. They really ate and slept together. When they were hungry, they would catch a couple of earth centipedes that weren't growing well and take a few bites. It was very comfortable. The problem at home was solved so easily. However, every time he left, Zhang Yi still habitually went to the 3 major bases to check for any safety hazards. He also tested to see if these guys had any ulterior motives. In fact, the entire Tianhai city was under his watchful eye. Even the control of Tianhai city in the Huashu Kingdom's satellite system was in his hands, so it was almost impossible for others to do anything behind his back. But Zhang Yi still went to check out of habit. However, everything here was pretty much the same. Life in Tianhai city was too comfortable. Except for the Sky Dragon King's desperate counterattack, the rest of the years had been smooth sailing. This made Zhang Yi sigh with emotion. He had experienced so much outside, and he and the people around him had grown at a terrifying speed. But the people in the base around him had turned into wild animals in a zoo, losing their wildness. The leaders of the 3 major bases were now far behind the deputy captain level in terms of strength. Zhang Yi couldn't do anything about it, so he just told them to be careful and pay attention to their safety. He also told them to keep an eye on the people around them to see if they showed any signs of mutation. By the time he returned, the Earth Centipede farm should also be ready for harvest. At that time, he would slowly train a group of outstanding mutants and form a mutant defense force for Tianhai City. He couldn't be expected to do everything himself every day, or he would lose face. There was no need to go into detail about the preliminary preparations. In short, Zhang Yi was well prepared and quietly took the people around him to the snowy plateau. The Huashu Kingdom was very large, but the speed of space shuffle was really fast. In less than half an hour, Zhang Yi and his people arrived at the outskirts of the snowy plateau. The southwest region included parts of Sichuan and Chongqing and the snowy plateau. However, due to the appearance of the Undertaker of Tundra in the snowy plateau, it quickly became the dominant force in the entire southwest region. Whoever became the master of Tundra would be the supreme ruler of the snowy plateau and the entire southwest region. In order to play the part well and not arouse suspicion, Zhang Yi really acted like an ordinary mercenary from the outside world, pretending to be heading for the snowy region from the Sichuan-Chongqing area. He took out a huge snow vehicle, and the 4 people and a cat got in and started driving along the vast and boundless snowy plains. The road into the snowy plateau had long been covered by heavy snow, so there were roads everywhere. Fortunately, they had the satellite map of the southwest region given to them by Pa Jigsaw, so they would not get lost in this place that looked like a world of ice and snow. Entering the snowy plateau, they could see endless mountains in the distance, stretching out like huge white dragons lying on the ground. These were the Qinling Mountains. In the history of the Huashu Kingdom, it was one of the most famous dragon veins, with an influence that rivaled that of the Qinling Mountains. In ancient legends, this was the residence of the gods of the heavens and a sacred place in the hearts of countless cultivators. Zhang Yi was wearing heavy battle armor, but underneath was the submarine dragon armor. This lightweight battle armor did not look much different from high-tech combat suits, but the combat effectiveness it provided was worlds apart. Nowadays, even the highest-level combat suits in the region could hardly withstand a full-power attack from a captain-level mutant. However, the submarine dragon armor made of E-metal that Zhang Yi wore had more than 30 times the defense of those combat suits. To date, this is the most advanced armor in the world, boasting the highest defensive capabilities and superior performance. The snowmobile resembled a silver lion, racing across the vast, endless snowfield. Its tracks crushed the ice and snow, leaving 2 precise grooves in their wake. Zhang Yi sat in the car and talked with the people around him about their plans after entering the snowy region. They had discussed many things countless times, but they still habitually confirmed everything again to avoid any oversights. After entering the snowy region, the first thing we must do is confirm whether the so-called Demon Kingdom treasure is real. We won't work for free. If there aren't enough benefits, we'll retreat immediately and let them fight amongst themselves. If the first point is satisfied, then the most important thing for us to do next is to obtain information about the legendary Lord of the Corpse. When this matter was mentioned, Zhang Yi's brow furrowed slightly, and he became much more cautious. The southwest region was a special area where the Reaper of Love did not have the authority to fire. Therefore, at present, Epsilon-level mutants were practically invincible here. Zhang Yi's only fear was the Undertaker, who was known as the Heavenly Gift. However, every time he asked about him, Pa Jigsaw was always vague. Without enough information for comparison, it was impossible to confirm how strong the Undertaker really was. Yan Xinxin's voice came through the communication channel. Pa Jigsaw is also wary of us. I'm afraid he will only tell us the specific information when we actually arrive at the Pa Ji family. Zhang Yi nodded, that's true. But this Undertaker is very mysterious, and the so-called Heavenly Gift adds to his mystique. Zhang Yi hugged his arms, his face solemn. He always respected opponents whose strength he didn't know and didn't dare to underestimate them in the slightest. On the contrary, Uncle Yu in the back seat laughed loudly, hugging his thick arms. Why should you be afraid of the so-called Heavenly Mandate? In a sense, aren't we mutants all people who have been blessed by heaven? Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows at these words. That seems to make sense. It's just that he got a little more, like an Abashika, which filled him up directly. Sitting in the passenger seat was Liang Yu, fully armed. With the dragon's roar in its sheath beside her, she said indifferently, Abashika is a Buddhist term. Those who practice Tantra can attain enlightenment through the Abashika, so perhaps it also has a strange effect on supernatural powers. It's not that strange. After all, even something as incomprehensible as reincarnation can't be explained in their case. What else is there to say? Thinking of the magical gifted singer and the undertaker of reincarnation, everyone couldn't help but feel even more awe for the mysterious snowy plateau. Only Fatty Sue kept his head down and played his game. Zhang Yi couldn't help but glance at him coldly. Fatty Sue, you've been playing games a lot lately. Fatty Sue didn't even turn his head. That's because I used to play single-player games, but now I finally have someone to play with. Fatty Sue felt everyone's strange gaze and asked, Is something wrong? Zhang Yi looked amused and said, Did you say partner? It was the end of the world. How many people could still play online games together? Ordinary people didn't have that privilege, unless they were one of the few people in each region with special permissions. Only they had the authority to connect to other regions' networks. It's not Liang Yang, is it? Zhang Yi looked strange. Fatty Sue scratched his head awkwardly, but his hands continued to rub the screen quickly. Don't let Fatty Sue's fat hands fool you, he was pretty fast at rubbing the screen. You could say that. Everyone was speechless for a moment. You know her. Let's just use her for now, because using him always makes people think you're a pervert. You know she's a man, and you can act like nothing's going on? Fatty Sue explained, it's not easy to find a game partner you get along with. Not to mention. His face turned red. She often sends me photos of herself wearing little dresses. Don't say anything, she looks pretty good. Dang. Zhang Yi felt goosebumps all over his body. He gritted his teeth, looked at him hatefully, and said word by word, since you like her so much, why don't you just go to the Xinjiang region and find her? Fatty Sue sighed, forget it. I think this way of getting along is fine. Why do we have to be together in real life? Zhang Yi slapped his forehead. He finally understood. He's just a fat otaku, so it's normal for him to marry a cartoon character and get his kicks online. But when it comes to real life, he chickens out. Okay, you're amazing, Su Chun-lei. Zhang Yi curled the corner of his mouth. As long as Fatty Sue didn't go crazy, for the sake of a woman. Just then, Liang Yu, who was in the passenger seat, suddenly widened her eyes and looked ahead in disbelief. She pointed ahead with her finger, her voice a little excited. Look! Buddha's light. Everyone's attention shifted from Fatty Sue and they all looked into the distance. On the endless snowfield, their small snowmobiles were as insignificant as ants. In the distance, the snow-capped mountains stretched out like a dragon lying down, towering between heaven and earth. And on top of those snow-capped mountains, a brilliant green light suddenly rose, enveloping the peaks like the sun. Zhang Yi's pupils slowly dilated. He had never seen such a beautiful light in his entire life. With his limited vocabulary, he couldn't describe the magnificence of this light. He only felt that one glance made him happy, as if all the gloom in his heart had been swept away. His nervousness and worries about entering the snowy region dissipated in an instant. At the edge of the green light, there seemed to be a faint layer of golden light, stretching across the snowy mountains, ethereal, sacred, and with a hint of emptiness. Zhang Yi had many words on the tip of his tongue, but in the end, he swallowed them back. He did not believe in any religion, but he believed in the concept of better to believe it and not know than to know and not believe. At this moment, it was better to hold a sense of awe in his heart. No one spoke, and this scene was also seen by Yang Xinxin and the others through the shadow space. Some people put their hands together in reverence, some remained indifferent, and some silently admired. The car was self-driving, so they didn't need to pay any attention to it. He didn't know how long it took before the intelligence system alerted him, bringing him back to his senses. Life form detected, identified as human. Zhang Yi immediately asked the system to zoom in on the image. The tactical goggles dropped, and before his eyes, the scene thousands of meters away was quickly brought closer and closer. Then, he saw a scene that he would never forget. It was freezing cold, with the wind howling, and the temperature on the snowy plateau was even lower than in Xinjiang in the north. However, on the long and winding mountain road, there was a man with long hair, wearing only a pair of thin cotton pants, bare-chested and barefoot, slowly and steadily prostrating himself on the snowy road. This scene left Zhang Yi speechless. It also made everyone who saw it feel emotional. Supernatural beings can indeed withstand the cold in such a cold season. But that requires them to use their supernatural powers. What's more, being able to do it and being willing to do it are two completely different things. There was no sign of human habitation or buildings for hundreds of miles around, yet he was slowly prostrating himself along the snowy mountain. Zhang Yi had heard that there was a way of praying for blessings in the snowy plateau, which was to prostrate oneself and walk around the mountain. Only the most devout believers would choose this most difficult method. There is a line in a poem by Sangyang Gyatso, "That year, I circled the mountains, the waters, and the stupas, not to cultivate the next life, but only to meet you in this life." It is clear that for Tantra believers, this is the highest level of asceticism. Zhang Yi had heard about it before on social media, but this was the first time he had seen it, and in this day and age. The end of the world had come, order had collapsed, and people's hearts were in turmoil. The vast majority of people would abandon even morality and human ethics in order to survive. How many people could still hold on to their beliefs? He must be a mutant from the snowy region, possibly a monk from Sangha Temple, Yang Xinxin reminded Zhang Yi. She wasn't interested in religion, so she wasn't particularly affected. If people are too smart and see too much, they will lose their sense of awe for everything. Zhang Yi thought for a moment, let's not disturb him. He must not be an ordinary person to be able to practice asceticism here. After all, we are outsiders, so we should stay out of trouble. Despite this, the snowmobile still headed in the direction of the ascetic monk, which was the only way to enter the snowy region. The group watched him for more than 10 minutes, but the ascetic monk paid no attention to the outside world. His naked upper body was as solid as a Buddha statue in a temple, and his bare feet were wide, leaving 2 rows of clear prints in the snow. Zhang Yi suddenly slowed down and looked at the ascetic monk, a smile slowly appearing on the corner of his mouth. "I didn't expect to see such a good show here." "Uncle," you said in confusion, "what's going on?" Zhang Yi smiled faintly, "Someone's here." Liang Yu's right hand subconsciously rested on the hilt of Dragon's Roar. "There's a killing intent nearby." Everyone in the car tensed up and immediately took out their weapons. Liang Yu quickly said, "This killing intent is not aimed at us." Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes. He had already sensed the unusual movement around him. He could hide it from others, but not from someone with supernatural powers over time and space. He was more sensitive to the vibrations in space than anyone else. The ground rumbled beneath their feet, and more than a dozen snow dragons suddenly appeared from all directions, rushing towards the ascetic monks less than a kilometer away from Zhang Yi and the others. Zhang Yi could clearly sense that when one of the snow dragons passed by them, a probing thought swept over them. However, Zhang Yi did not make a move. The ability of everything follows the trail told him that these people would not attack them. Their target was the ascetic monk. Bang! The snow dragons suddenly exploded at the end of the earth, and more than a dozen people rushed out from under the snow and ice, surrounding the ascetic monks. "Sangha Temple's lackeys, your time is up." A woman stepped forward. She was dressed in white, almost invisible in the heavy snow, but she had long hair tied into small braids with colorful ribbons. Before coming here, Zhang Yi had done some research on the snowy plateau, so he knew that this was a local ethnic costume. Therefore, these people were also from the snowy region. A local power struggle? Zhang Yi tilted his head and said indifferently. "What should we do?" "Uncle," you asked with some concern. They were outsiders and needed to hide their identities, so it was not appropriate for them to interfere in any local disputes. "Let's just watch the show," Zhang Yi said indifferently. "Since we are vicious mercenaries, We can't be too strict with the rules, besides, there are experts among them. Before he could finish speaking, the white-robed woman had already attacked. The other white-robed men stood by without moving, coldly surrounding the ascetic monk. The one who attacked was the long-haired woman who seemed to be the leader. The long-haired woman's face was quickly covered in ice and snow, and her body took on a crystalline appearance. It was the purest ice crystal. Her hair, torso, and limbs had all turned to solid ice. Her hair was as thin as iron wires, and her arms had grown long ice blades. The thick ice crystals on her body had condensed into armor. She swung her fists toward the young monk with all her might. In the next moment, a terrifying snowstorm erupted behind her, and ice blades as sharp as knives swept toward the young monk from all directions. The snowstorm was like an avalanche, carrying with it a momentum that was almost enough to destroy everything in sight. This move made Zhang Yi squint his eyes. At least 9,600 points. Or is it 9,700? In a real battle between mutants, unless they were sparring or testing each other, every move was a killing move, so it was possible to judge their approximate strength at a glance. This long-haired woman was an ice ability user, but her strength exceeded Fatty Sue's by an unknown amount. The young monk's hair was disheveled, and his true appearance was unclear. He stood in place with his hands clasped together, and a terrifying snowstorm whipped up a strong wind, which also blew his messy hair across his face. Even at this moment, he still had a smile on his face, but the smile on his bowed head was tinged with pity for all sentient beings. Why bother? He murmured softly, but his body did not move. The surging snowstorm was like a collapsing snow mountain, instantly reaching his feet, and endless blizzards rushed towards him. But he stood firm in the snow like a rock in a flood, his hands clasped together, allowing the snow to wash over him without moving an inch.